Well, hello everybody. Hey, welcome back to Santa's Switch Adapted Toys. We're gonna make a leap from a previous video on micro switches and how to use them, and I'll link back to that. But in that video, I had this little tiny switch here, which I purchased, and I had a thought or a request to do incorporating this with a mouse, and it got me to thinking about the mouse themselves. You can pick these up at the junk store, or you can pick these up down at a second-hand store for cheap, or you may have a couple of them laying around. It's a USB mouse. What's interesting about it is if your client or individual can use any of those super soft functions on there, and there's 3 of them for clicking. There's the left mouse click, right mouse click, and once you scroll in, you've got also potential of a hold with another switch there. And what if you were to say, I want that since this is compatible for my for the user, how about if we turn this into an adaptive switch? And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. Again, all you really need, and this is what the jump was, all you need is a switch at the end of this, and then off to your adaptive toy. I've got this hooked to my test box. I'm using a stereo cable which has 3 wires in it, turned it into a mono cable, which is all that's needed for adaptive switches. And for that, this tests to make sure that the sleeve and ring are combined and the tip is separate. If that's the case, both of these lights come on, and this will now activate a switch adapted toy. And we're going to use Beaver here as our test for that to occur. Because Beaver is reactive, I can stop his program with it. So here's the switch, and it activates the toy and interrupts the program. Okay, so we'll turn Beaver off, and we'll turn our attention back to task at hand. Task at hand. Turn a computer mouse, no longer to be used on a computer. We're going to disengage the wiring for it into an adaptive switch. Got to open it up. I found the screw to be underneath the security label. Easy enough. Inside all of these are switches. So you've got the red buttons here indicating that these this is for the switch for the left mouse, or left, right, and here's the black one in the center here. That is for, it's hard to see it, but it'll be obvious when you open them up. That's for the scroll. So this particular one, that one screw opened it up, and right here there's a little black spot you can see on the circuit board. That is where they melted down a little bit of a prong that was sticking up to hold this entire circuit board in place. There's 3 prongs for positioning, one here, and this one which was melted down. So we're going to have to damage that to get the circuit board up, because we're going to use these 3, 1 or 2 or all 3 of these switches, and make them adaptive. So probably, let's say we just pry that up. Okay, nothing needs to be real fancy here. We can now almost completely remove the board. The wiring is set to go into the computer for the USB readings, but we're not going to use that. so I'm going to just connect all of them. This is no longer a USB mouse. And they put a strain relief on here. It's pretty snug. I don't care. We're going to get rid of that. Now, the other functions we need to make sure of here. Let's see, there was the wheel. As parts come off of it. The scroll wheel. This is the optical reader. We won't need either of those when this is done, but we'll want to have them to put back in just so that it's, at least the scroll, so just so that it's a complete mouse when we're done. And we are isolating this switch, which is the left side, and when you turn it over, it has a contact here and a contact there. There's two contacts. I need to be consistent about what I use to point things out. The outside and the inside contact. On the other side, the same thing. We have an outside and inside contact. And then back here on this switch, when we turn it over, we also have two contacts highlighted by the outside of those by that white box. That's all we're going to use is connect to those. So I'm only going to do one because that's what I have out here. We're going to sacrifice this guy. And I'm going to plug this back. Yeah, no, let's not do that yet. I'm going to set this up. I want as short of wires as possible. I need to determine where I can send the wire into the case and have it work. And boy, I'm just liking that same spot. I wonder if I can get what it's going to take. This was pressed in and then glued over. It was melted over to hold that cable in place. It's melted here. What happens if I pry that up? Okay, good. So now that cable jumps out. We're going to make this into a single. Oh, this is beautiful. We're going to make this into a single functioning. So I'm going to tie a knot in here. I am a avid promoter of knots, and the roller ball goes. We're not going to have the roller in there anymore. For me to put this mouse in, this wire in, I need that space for my cable. So that roller's not going to go in there anymore, the scroller. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Bring this back a little bit. So I'm going to pop this off. Now, these switches are all tied to this central processing unit, which we won't need anymore. Central processing unit reads it, sends a signal into the computer. We don't need that. We don't want it. And in fact, we really want to isolate this switch, and this switch from any other components on the board. I'm going to scratch all the printed circuits on the green side here. I'm going to scratch this. I do not want any possibility of interference. So I'm going to remove the contacts, the printed circuit side here. How did I do on that? I'm getting close. I still have some copper there, so it's going to take a little bit more work. But I want to isolate that prong, because we're going to use just that prong. Apparently there's quite a bit of copper there. And on this side, I'm going to bring this up to the camera when I'm done. So there's that one. The circuit has been cleaned off. It's not going to make contact. It's the same thing on all three of them here. We're going to do this one also. It has, I'm looking at the trace board. I know that you can't see this because I got my tools in the way, but again, I'll bring this up. I'm looking at the trace board and figuring out where the contacts go and what I need to do to damage this to the point that it's only that it's isolated our switches. So you can see here now that I've got the green has been removed, the copper has been removed, and we're down to the base the circuit board, base board. And you can tell by looking through it a little bit. Let's see if I get the light behind it here. When you look through it, you can see through it. You can see the opaqueness and the fact that there's nothing blocking your vision, right? And that way you know that the contact has been broken. So there's the two. This contact is now isolated. This contact is isolated, as well as these two. And if we're going to make it a 3 switch, we need to do the same thing to these two, and that is to scrape away some more stuff. Yes, I'm destroying the mouse, but since I got this thing at such a good price, and I'm using it for other purposes which are more valuable to me at the moment, this is the donor. Okay, so we've got that disconnected, and I'm just going to do the other side of this also. It's kind of like making it'd be easier if we could just clean the whole board off and start over, but I don't have the solutions for that. So there we are. We have now isolated all 3 of those switches. So any one of those you choose can be turned into an adaptive switch. I've got this wire running. It will run through here. Time to prep the wire. I wasn't paying attention. When I cut this, I don't remember whether it was white and the yellow together, or the red and the yellow, or the white and the red. Let's find out. What we want in order to test this, and I'll link to the video of how to do this using my box. We don't want any lights to light up over here when we combine the wires. So the white and the yellows, there's nothing lighting up. That's good. The red and the white, there is one of them lighting up. And the red and the yellow, there's one of them lighting up. That this is correct again. We're going to bring this together. Turn on the soldering iron and solder up to make this a mono cable. Soldering iron's warm. And soldering iron is good. Okay. So we're going to choose which of these we're going to use. I'm going to make it the left mouse button. And do I have room underneath for the wires to run? I do if I'm careful. So let's just go ahead and solder these on. Now, here. here. Okay, so this is what I've got. I've got the soldered onto these two connections for the left mouse button. I'm going to punch it and the light comes on. This is now an adaptive switch. If we were satisfied to have just one, we would reassemble this. Managing our wires as carefully as possible. We do have room underneath the circuit board to run our wires. Position this in. And let's see. Okay. Position this in place. Put it back on the tabs. Registration tabs. If I were done with this, I would grab my soldering iron and I would melt this down again to hold it in place. That's what the factory did. Okay, and so that's held in place. Put the cover back on. Let's see the cover. Oops, I got it. So this is where the management of your cables is going to be kind of an issue here. The more cables you put in, the more difficult it's going to be, but still. Okay. And oops, wrong set of hardware. And put that back together with a screw in there. And a little screwdriver. Mouse. Look at that.
Oh, hi. Oh, hi. I love shapes and colors. Let's...
And you can hear it's interrupting the program every time I push the button.
Let's move.
Super sensitive buttons on these, by the way.
Beaver boogie. Shay, do you...
Okay? So,
Let's play.
if you were to properly manage your wiring in here, you could put in 3 of them. You could end up with this controlling 3 devices simply by adding and again carefully managing your wires into this case. Another option for it would be to bring all the wires from the back end, tie your knot back here where there's no obstructions in the case, route them underneath the circuit board to their respective locations, and then you could put that scroller back in if you want, just for aesthetics. But then you would have 3 cables, 2 or 3 cables out the back. This is easy enough to do. There's different options for. Take this apart. Got 1, 2. Take that knot out of there. Drill a hole in the back. I need the right size hole. 3. So now we're going to go ahead and just make up these cables. Let's see, I need, or I want, when this comes up, I'm going to want a little bit of loose or single strands or wire cables coming up into there. Let's see, I'm confident that these are the same, but I always double check before making them up. So there's a stereo cable that's just been turned into a mono cable. Let's make up another one. We're going to turn this mouse into a three-button controller. Activate 3 different toys, 3 functions, 3 different devices. Again, we want a little bit of wire. We're going to put, yes, those are together. And that one. Always tin the wires first, because that way it's, when it comes time to setting them onto the connections, it's really quick and easy to do. And when the light comes, or when they contact, that's now a mono cable. I want a little bit more wire here, cable sticking out. We are going to push these through the back. So I guess another note here, this particular Yumqua mouse that opened up had 3 very obvious connection points inside for how the micro switches, or the switches on them, so that we could adapt them up, find, locate where they were inside, and connect our cables to it. Whenever you open up a computer mouse, you're going to maybe have a different type of configuration, but you're always going to have micro switches out there, okay? And that's what you're looking for. If you have any questions about isolating those, let me know. I'm going to be more than happy to help if you send me a picture. But the issue, once you open it up, once you see what's here, it should be fairly easy for you to understand what you're looking for. I need for this to reach all the way to the front of the case with ease, no strains. So we're going to put a knot in it way back here. Yep. Okay. only needs to reach, the middle one only needs to reach to about the middle of the case. So we're going to put a knot in it a little shorter on the pole, so that we don't have too much inside the case when we're set and done. I have a little more freedom than that. Okay. And similarly to the right mouse click, left mouse click needs a wire that runs all the way to the front of the case. And how did I do? Did pretty good. Okay. We'll tighten those up. This goes in like this. We're going to flip it over. I want loose wires underneath because I don't know how much freedom I have of clearance under there. So I'm going to go ahead and strip these back a bit further. Alright, there again, orientation goes in like this. So the farthest one comes over here. Let's wire them up. Let's solder them together. So I'm just grabbing one at a time and bringing them over to the circuit board. Let's see. Let's get me some solder in here. Oops. There we go. Left. Left. Reminds me of a dice game. Left, right, center. Looks like I have plenty of room underneath there too for this. One. Going to lay 6 wires down in 6 different positions because we want them isolated from each other and not interfering. Because of the existing circuits on the board, we eliminated all the printed circuit. Let's see, I'm going to check these one at a time as I go. One I just hooked up is this one. Yes. Where'd it go? We're going to go with the right mouse button. Wire in place. Critical on here, by the way, is you don't have any accidental jumping of the wires. You don't want any solder, any loose wire, anything, making a connection across that. That is this cable here. That is the left mouse button. Let's see, what do they plug in? I got them confused. There's the left mouse button. There. Is that right? Yes, okay. Left mouse button. Right mouse button. Is it wired up? Okay. Right mouse button. And I have yet to connect up the scroll or the center button. So let's do that right now. Looks like a mess. Looks like a mess, but I am pretty confident that when this is all done and neatened and cleaned up, it's going to look like a mouse with 3 tails. Alright, so now we've got which plugged in. That one. I want the center one. Plug it in and test. Yes. Okay. Fully functioning. Okay. Now I'm going to cheat. I have a box made up that I should be able to test all 3 of these at one time. This is extra fancy. I made these up because I was just doing so many toys and adapting that and multiple cables. 1, 2. See this here. 1, 2, 3. They all work. All right. Let's reassemble the mouse. We needed to manage those cables underneath. As carefully as possible. Set this back down on the posts, registration posts that are in there. The registration posts are, I think there's one there. There's one there. And the front 2 are there. A little details of pulling and wiring, pulling the cables, wiring out of the way, because we don't want to pinch anything. We've done some nice work to put this together. We don't want to pinch anything. Any wires that might have gotten in the way of putting this board back. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of difficulty on this right one because that's the one that had the that's the one that they melted down. Yeah, it's not setting quite right. Yeah, they got the plastic underneath it. Alright, we're set now. Okay, so because they melted down a post that we had to destroy a little bit to get this off of there, I'm going to take and do some plastic welding. Remember this piece that I took out of the front? Yeah, I'm going to put that back in. Never mind. Let's see if I have another piece. Okay, I don't. Okay, I'm just going to reach in with the soldering iron and do a touch melt on these other points and just kind of deform them a bit to help hold that mouse in place. It's going to be held down by the top half of our case. Wire management. No pinching of wires. That is bad, bad, bad form. Put these wires into here. They're a little long. You want to make yours neater. I encourage that. Okay. Clamshell back on the top. Oh, one of the reasons we did this was because we were going to put the scroller back in there. We probably should have put the scroller button back in before I assembled it. But that's okay, there it is. This actually is a 4-button mouse. Underneath here, Let's pull that wheel back out for a second. And you may find this on yours. Underneath here, this little white dot is the scroll click. This is an extra one. This is the scroll click here. That scroll click, similarly, on that back side, you would isolate it. And instead of here, you may find left, right, scroll click to be, and you would isolate it so that when you press this button, your toy activated, okay? So, oversight on my part with regards to what this button does, this particular mouse. Let's finish putting it back together. I was going to put this in for aesthetics. Help close that case up. Soldering iron will weld melt it into place. It's not the only thing we have out the front to the original holes. Let's see, what am I pressing? I'm pressing on. Hello everybody. Well, sorry for this big change up here. I was working on the mouse, adapting it, and the battery on my camera failed. So I finished it all up, looked at the camera and realized I didn't have the video that we were expecting. But anyway, so I changed it up just a little bit from what we saw last time. Realized this is actually a 4-button mouse. I wired it up with 3 remotes, three cables to operate things, and I can plug it into the tester that I've made up, and we can see now that this mouse does not work with a computer, but it works with adapted switch. It's an adaptive switch. So there's the left mouse button, there's the scroll or the center, and there's the right. What's not hooked up, there's a button in the middle here, a switch inside that we didn't use. We can hook him up to
Hey, friend.
some other toys. Let's move stuff around. Turn on DJ Bounce here. I don't know if we get all this family of characters in front of us. Alright. So that wasn't switch activated, that was, so see which one I plugged into left mouse button. Okay, so that's DJ mount. And he's going to say something. Yep. Alright. Slow down here, slow down. Okay, so now what's right mouse button? Right mouse button is operating the beaver. And let's see if we can turn on beat bell. Beat bell is now operated by the center. So this one device can operate all 3 of these. And that was the oops, okay, end of that demonstration. Let's open this back up, get to the inside so we can see what we did. Okay, so I didn't secure it down like it's a finished product to ship out, but what I did was got it sitting here so that we can look at it. 3 cables come into the back. I routed them in there. Doing that allowed for the scroll wheel to have freedom of movement, and the 4 switches on here are the ones we found earlier: the right mouse button, the left mouse button. This is the one we're not using. This is the bonus one. And then under the wheel, the scroll is, let's pull this apart, is another switch. And that switch you can see here is black with a little white button on it. And so that's the 3rd switch and the one that we're wired up to. And when you look at the back of the mouse circuit board, I have got the left mouse button wired here, and I cleaned off, again, earlier I'm showing that I have cleaned off all the circuits on the board so that nothing can accidentally contact. So there's the left mouse button, the right mouse button, and this over here is the center, the scroll mouse button, and it corresponds easily with this. There's only two connections on the back. You hook to those two connections and you've got that functioning. So that is a way of turning a thrift store mouse into an adaptive switch. If your client or the user can function with a mouse at all, this would be a nice way of doing it. And if you only did one of these, or if you did them all three, I mean, you did all three and you got them all set up, you're ready to go, because that gives the most flexibility for the caregiver and the user, and you only plugged in one of them because that's what that particular client can use, and you were able to set this up under their armpit, under their leg, wherever it is that they can function with this. This becomes a nice contour, ergonomically set minimum movement switch, okay? And again, all three of these are super sensitive. As you know, on any mouse, they're super sensitive. They last forever. This is a very reliable switch. So I wanted to touch base on that. Thank you for watching. Again, I apologize for the interruption in this, but and I hope that you understood what the finished product was. So we'll get this posted, and thanks again. If you like my videos, I've got a couple more coming out fairly soon here because of some of the toys I'm working on. But subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications. Like, that allows for YouTube to identify that this is a video worth sharing, and maybe that gets out, and share it. The intention is get these useful things into the community, helping people out, making lives better. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, folks.